Hi, and welcome once again to What's the Damage companion show to the incredibly well-known and popular real play D&D show Roll for Damage, filmed in front of a live studio audience. That's very nearly true. So on Friday, things got a little weird and a little wacky as the Shields of Twilight's adventures in the wonderful city of Zuma continued. Oriana found herself in the Temple of Asmodeus and was able to get a little bit of information out of a very friendly priest who only asked for a simple prayer in return. Totally not shady at all. Great deal. Um, while that was happening, Zuma continued to establish itself as the city of love, as Perry had a lovely and extremely cute date with Fulton, and it was a real date. No love potions detected. Later, much later, Campion followed Oriana to midnight mass after Oriana, magically tongue-tied, failed to assure Campion and Cedric that nothing shady was going on. Is something shady going on? It's heavily implied that there's something shady going on. We don't quite know the breadth and scope of what it is yet, but we're definitely going to speculate starting right now. And then a bit later, we're going to talk about the subtle art of playing characters who are not just clones of you as a person. Fun. As always, stick around after the stream for things to think about, organizations to support, and great places to send your spare change. We've got brand new links this week, finally updated. I'm your host, Truth Venson, and this is What's the Damage? Welcome back. We've got two lovely guests tonight. We've got the incomparable Jake, and we've got the unspeakable Tick. Thank you guys for joining me. So, some stuff happened. We had another date. Neither of you were on it. And we had a little bit of a midnight stroll. What's the damage this time around?
What isn't the damage right now?
What kind of damage does unwittingly signing a contract do? Force?
Financial, usually.
I mean, you broke one of the big rules. I mean, you kind of engaged in a battle of wits with a Sicilian.
Hey, Oriana's trying to become a Sicilian. You learn by doing.
To be fair, she wanted to learn, and she learned.
First lesson, right?
Did she learn yet?
Hey.
I'm just saying, I mean...
Wonderful. Cool beans. Yeah, and we're gonna obviously dive right into that. But before that, I want to talk about a couple of things that happened last episode. So first of all, did Cedric enjoy his date with Voltaire? It's very fun.
I mean, it was fun. It was more of a babysitting moment, but definitely fun. I'm more excited to pick up the fancy clothes.
Oh yeah, what are you gonna do with those fancy clothes? Go see a show.
I'm gonna wear them. It's not like I need armor.
Ah, true. Advantages of being a barbarian. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, I'm surprised more barbarians don't just wear like fancy suits. Because you can.
wear my fancy robe and top hat into a battle.
Note to self: barbarian that wears a tux and flexes through the sleeves and has to buy new tux every time.
Okay, that's a fantastic character concept.
Be like one of those
Wonderful.
muscle guys with no sleeves on the tux suit, like the frayed edges and the tie and everything.
Perfect. Nice. Yeah. So Oriana, you finally made it to church.
Yes.
Yeah. So before we really dig into all the stuff that happened, what was Oriana hoping to get from like making it to the Temple of Asmodeus?
She was hoping to finally get some sort of idea of what it means to follow him, what it means to walk his path, and to kind of finally get that question answered of, is this something I'm comfortable doing? And for the most part, barring one tiny thing that happened that we don't need to go into detail on, she did end up learning about what she hoped to learn about. She managed to learn what the tenets are, what it means to walk his path, how people walk his path, and of course, learning, similar to Quinn, learning how, Bane, not everybody who worships Bane is, this person who wants to oppress people and be mean and assert their power over people. Some of them are just generals who are really great at leading troops and pushing through, and people like Quinn who are just doggedly stubborn in their pursuit of their goals. So she is a little bit more willing to follow it now, which is why she didn't want to make a big deal about the Mass, and then kind of figured out that she couldn't make a big deal about the Mass to begin with because she couldn't speak.
But yeah, the Mass did end up being a big deal.
Yeah. Let's stay a big deal.
It's probably going to get bigger, honestly. Once you figure out that Oriana maybe can't leave the city, we'll see how that turns out.
I have thoughts on that, yeah.
I'm sure you do. So, I thought it was actually pretty interesting to see, Oriana actually talking to a priest of her new faith, sort of. She seemed to actually kind of open up to this priest pretty quickly. It seemed like she's been really wanting someone to talk to. Is that accurate?
I would say it's more accurate to say that she's wanted answers for a while, and this was her first real opportunity to get them in a place she felt, air quotes, safe. She did not think that going to a place where people seek guidance, where people get answers to their questions, where people express their faith, would be a place where she would have to have her guard up and be sort of, double and triple checking everything. Turns out, it's Asmodeus. You got to be on your toes at all times. Or you end up promising to do something without meaning to. But yeah, I think it's safe to say she really just wanted the answers. And she got them.
Yeah, good that she finally got some of these answers that she's been craving for so long. And I think it was interesting that most of the answers were look inward. I suppose that's how religion usually works. But I kind of wanted to touch on something that did come up came up indirectly during the conversation with the priest when Oriana sort of talked about how she had been trying to follow Ayun, and now she was sort of straddling Ayun at Asmodeus and sort of looking to Asmodeus too. Where does this desire for godly approval come from with Oriana? Or does this just mix weirdly with her desire to be the writer of her own story? Or
it weirdly wasn't a thing until Avonhurst. Her entire journey to Avonhurst, her ideal, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, was to just have a life worth living. And it was a relatively recent goal of hers. Up until that point, she had been sort of comfortable in her life as a noble and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she started getting her eyes open to the world around her, by her mentors and by traveling and things like that, she realized, I want to make my own story. I want to make a story worthy of the greatest libraries. And in her mind, not knowing religion, that means it needs to be worthy of Ioun, who she, perhaps mistakenly, perhaps unintentionally, hard to say, associates with being this sort of grand librarian in a way.
Interesting. Yeah, honestly, fascinating. So let's backtrack a little bit. I wanted to touch on the fight with that Orianna had with Perry in the last episode. Now, actually, I personally don't think it was unreasonable for Orianna to be a little bit paranoid in this instance, because people had been hallucinating, but obviously that fight was already primed to happen. So can we get like Oriana's perspective on the throwdown in the street?
It was, yeah. So kind of everything that had been leading up to this, none of this was like Orianna intentionally trying to egg on Perry or get under her skin or anything like that. Ironically enough, I think it was more player, but oddly enough, it works for Orianna as well. The whole comment on Perry hearing something and maybe thinking, going a little too in depth into it, was probably more of a flub than anything else. It wasn't her trying to say anything about Perry. It was just like, I think we're putting a little too much value on this particular instance. I don't think we're in danger at the moment. And then the later instance of Orianna messaging, that was to sort of fix and rebuild, mend fences essentially, with the earlier fight, which was, Orianna unintentionally maybe saying that, oh, you guys are just paranoid. Okay, well, there's people, but I don't think they're supposed to be here. That's kind of weird, and people have been seeing things. Let me just double check that it's them, guys, before we go running after them and, go twist down a dark alley and, oh, look, there's the Harbinger.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, that's what she tried to do as a way to sort of make up for it. So it's ironic that it actually made things worse, and I actually as a player, I love that it made things worse, because it made this really interesting character moment for Orianna, where she realizes by trying to walk both paths, Ioun's path and what she perceives to be Asmodeus' path at that point, she's kind of losing her friends. So she has this sort of crisis moment where, if I end up walking these paths, am I going to lose my friends? Am I going to lose the people I care about? Which was another reason why she really wanted to get into the library, to try and do her own research on Asmodeus and his worship. But then kind of settled for, well, we're near-ish the temple. I'm just going to go to the temple and try and get answers.
Cool beans. Yeah, and the priest actually, I think, gave a bit of advice, not to Orianna directly, but he did. This actually echoed by Cedric later too, the necessity of choosing your words carefully. Yeah. I thought it was interesting.
Many lessons learned.
Many lessons learned. Yeah, but can we talk a little bit about the rift that has opened up between Perry and Orianna, because you guys were like, we're best friends.
Oriana's current goal at the moment is to try and rebuild from the damage that she's unintentionally caused, in order to try and, maintain that friendship. She has been very on edge emotionally for a while now. Especially after we were at the temple and she got ignored by both of the gods she looks up to, in a way. Or rather, the one she used to look up to and the one she's currently trying to follow. that was kind of a really, oh, I'm not important. I'm not doing something, or I am doing something wrong. And then seeing her friendship starting to deteriorate as a result of trying to follow these paths is that eye-opening moment for her of what's important to me and what do I care about. And now that she's gotten that answer that she's been looking for, her goal is, okay, I need to reassess everything. I need to apologize for my actions, and I need to find a way to make it up to Perry and the rest of the group to show that maybe I was going about things the wrong way, but I needed these answers.
Isn't that kind of I don't want you to like think too much into that, but isn't that kind of the pattern that Oriana's fallen into though? Like she does something, somebody reacts negatively, she apologizes, she tries to make it up, it makes things worse. Have you ever considered not apologizing and just either maybe not necessarily doubling down, but actually there was a moment in the fight with Peregrine where Oriana kind of lost her temper and for the first time I think sort of stood up for herself a little bit.
That actually was the moment for her to do that. I'm not apologizing. I need to find my path. I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong, and trying to stand up to Perry. And it was the fallout of doing that she was like, what is this costing me? What is this path costing me right now? Because I don't want to lose my friends. I don't want to lose the people I care about. I think we're going to see her get a little more confident and try to be a little more careful with her words in the future now. And I think we'll see a little bit of both. We'll see her still trying to maintain that friendship while also, being more assertive.
Interesting. And what does all this look like from like an outside perspective? Because Cedric was mostly just a fly on the wall, but he's been watching this this conflict play out, and he watched like Quinn's very negative reaction to it. I mean, later on, yeah.
On the surface, it's one of those where the way I'm looking at it is it's not necessarily inherently like Oriana's fault. This more seems like it's a kind of like an issue of upbringings and not understanding perspectives from each other. As far as Cedric still looks as Perry is very kind of like naive to the world and how other people like grow up in, situations like, even Oriana, where it probably was a very different upbringing, a very different set of rules as far as how one, grows up. So it's one of those where, in that sense, I think Oriana is pretty naive to the world as well, because, she hasn't had the ability to make a decision for herself, and that shows.
Yeah.
So
I
was just going to say, it's one of those situations where that particular argument, I don't think, either one of them were in the right or in the wrong for that matter. Because, I mean, that indifference, it's just the way that things are conveyed, they kind of make people feel like they're beneath a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
Or just completely indecisive altogether. Whereas Perry is, we're going to do this. We're going to save these people. We're going to do this because it's the good and right thing to do. And, again, sometimes that's not always the good thing to do either. So, like, even going back to the instance of withholding information, withholding that information could have very well saved someone's life. I mean,
circumstances.
Yeah. That's where I take the pragmatic approach as a character, and it's like, I understand that, maybe not knowing about something could have had a good effect. It's not necessarily a bad thing, especially around some of our more volatile party members that are, want to do various things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like maybe if those little potions weren't labeled free sample, they'll tell you might have drunk them. That metaphorically, I mean. Yeah, but I think Cedric has the right idea there, or that's been my impression at least, that there is a slight disconnect when it comes to communication styles. Because Oriana, obviously in her upbringing, which makes sense considering she was nobility, everything was very indirect. You hinted at things, you did not say them outright. Or that's the impression I've gotten. Jake, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's more or less what I've been going for. She's not. She's a lot more flowery with her words than she needs to be.
I mean, I get the impression as a character that you never really made a decision. Like the first decision you made was to run away.
That was her first decision. Yeah, that actually was.
Even then, that wasn't a very adult thing to do, and that's why I mentioned the naivety of things. It was pretty much a child throwing a temper tantrum.
I mean,
more or less, yeah.
I would disagree, actually. I think fleeing an arranged marriage is a very classic origin story. I don't think it's necessarily.
DM's pointing out that the arranged marriage was assumed.
Oh.
There was never actually. Yeah, he never actually proposed to Oriana. She was scheduled to meet him, and her mother was very excited about it, which her mother has been trying to set her up with high nobility to sort of marry up the ladder, so to speak. So Oriana assumed that's what was going on. And at the time, she was being, I don't want to say deceived, misled maybe, by her mentor who taught her bardic magic, into believing that, well, this guy leads the country and the country is evil, so what do you think's going to happen?
I mean, we've already learned on our very brief journey that evil doesn't exactly mean what we think it means.
Oh no, yeah, it's why she a couple sessions back sent a message to him to apologize, because she realizes that it was a stupid mistake now, and she never should have done that.
And I mean, in those cases, that's kind of where, Dobby was ahead of the group as far as that thinking, because it was it was almost very gray with the character as far as like, okay, if you kill this person, that's still a good thing in some way. Yeah, it's like Ori and Perry, I don't think would ever have or facilitate that kind of thought, if that makes sense.
Well, I intentionally made Oriana not very world-wise. She's very intelligent, very book-smart again. That plays into her stats and everything. And with Perry, I feel like she's a very wise person, but has a narrow world view in a way.
And see,
because that's how she grew up. So yes, she's very wise, but she's not very experienced. But as she's journeying, she is becoming more experienced, I think.
I think you and Perry are more similar than you guys, give yourself credit for, and that's why you end up butting heads.
Yeah, we are the opposite sides of certain things, but on the same scale. Or rather, we're on the same side of the scale, but we're on like opposite directions, opposite magnitudes. I don't know. So yeah, I foresee them continuing to butt heads in the future. But what I hope to see is that both characters kind of realize it, and it becomes less of a we're mad at each other, we're fighting each other, and more of we have different opinions on things, we have different ways of viewing things, but we'll find common ground.
You can have a friendly rivalry. Speaking of which, though, so Oriana, well, she got a bit of a, not a pep talk, but some words from the priest about leadership. She's now attempting to walk a path which is all about leadership. Does she want to lead the party? Or does she feel like she's obligated to? Or
it probably feels more like an obligation to her than an actual desire. That being said, I think she will take to it, and I think she will enjoy it once she's gotten an idea of how to be a leader. I mean, she's never led anybody before. So there's going to be growing pains. She's going to make mistakes. But I think once she gets an idea of how to handle it, I think she'll take to it a lot more willingly and less, well, this is the path I'm walking.
Interesting too to see how this plays out with Peregrine, who is also, I think, trying to take the reins of the party.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the things they butt heads on the most.
Yeah, and what I really want for Oriana is to not back down and not apologize for trying to take the reins.
We'll see.
But play your character the way you want. But it'd be more fun if you did it that way. But don't listen to me. I'm just a simple talk show host with simple opinions. Anyway, yeah, so one more question for you, and then we will branch out a little bit. So you did get roped into Midnight Mass, and you did get a little bit tricked by that perfectly nice priest who may have magically bound you? Yeah, bound you a little bit. So how's Oriana feeling about her introduction to the Church of Asmodeus? Since it's not bad exactly, but it's a little bit bad.
I think she gets what happened, and I think she understands why it happened. If I were thinking about like a new person coming into my temple where I'm the priest, and they didn't seem to understand the importance of what it means to follow that God, what it means to be a part of that faith, what it means to walk that path, I would put them to a test, which is exactly what happened. Oriana got put to a test. Hey, you want this information? Here's a thing you got to say. And it just so happens that it's a double lesson in and of itself of this is how our temple works. But by the way, this is how our temple works. And it's one of those things where if he had just asked her to do it, she would have done it. If he had asked her to come and play for the Midnight Mass, she probably would have said yes.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows that this priest isn't trying to abuse her mistake. You know, he's not forcing her to kill people or do something that she doesn't want to do. He forced her to do something that she loves doing. And he even let her keep the violin after it, which means a lot to her. Well, no. Campion did detect magic on it.
It might be cursed.
Did he?
Yeah, he rolled through his glasses and he didn't see anything on it. So, I'm hopeful it's not cursed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think DM would force a character into a decision and then punish the character for that decision.
You're talking to both the people that received curse items already for their decisions.
Okay, listen. We had a choice on that one.
Yeah. You could have denied. You could have declined that violin.
I could have declined the violin. I don't think it's cursed. I don't think it's cursed. In before it's cursed, obviously. But yeah, she's taking the lesson to heart. You have to be careful with your words. Words are power is the lesson here, and that's what the faith and the path really revolves around. Being a leader, using your words to inspire. Those are the tenets. Those are the all that stuff. So yeah, and to manipulate. You don't have to do it. As the priest pointed out, what some of the misconceptions say of like everybody who follows Asmodeus is trying to get you to make a bad deal and all that kind of stuff. Like there are people in the faith that do that, just like there are people in the Palor's faith who probably smite people for jaywalking. You know what I mean? Like it's she understands the danger of walking this path now without having to face something more dangerous than a priest who wants to make sure she's learned a lesson.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to see her interact with more of Asmodeus' faithful, hopefully. She's so much to learn. It's so fun. Cool beans. Okay, so I loved how Cedric was like, you talk bad to Oriana. I thought that was hilarious. But then
it was late.
It was really late. She was being super vague. But then Cedric kind of organized the let's go make sure Oriana is okay party. So what what's the relationship there? Because I feel like it has become complicated, especially since Cedric killed her recently.
I mean, I think that was just a matter of, okay, she's probably going to get herself hurt and Campion's with her, and he's going to do something stupid that's going to exacerbate the situation. They probably need a chaperone. I mean, it's one of those where, essentially being kind of like a defender in the back seat, so to speak, letting them do their own thing, but, maybe being a little bit close behind in case something goes bad.
Does this make Cedric the mom friend of the party? Just making sure nobody wanders into traffic?
I mean, I feel like I did the exact same thing with Baltaim, just, in the city, like the same day. So, I mean, I guess so.
This is what happens when you're the oldest.
It's like, oh crap, he did something stupid. Okay, well,
these stupid kids.
Let's make sure he doesn't do something else stupid.
Nice. Yeah, it's like Cedric's he's not especially emotive, but it seems like he's always taking sort of like subtle actions to make sure the party is not getting into anything too stupid as much as he can. Of course, he can't stop everyone from doing anything.
No, it's more of a reactionary thing. I mean, that's kind of where the water was. It's like, okay, what's he going to do that's stupid in the water? Jump out of a boat? I mean, at least he can swim. I hope. We don't know.
Yeah, let's contain this into a nice boat.
Plus, I mean, I'm more at home on the water anyway, so it was a chance to look at the situation for what it was. It was a chance to scout the city, get some information, and yeah. It didn't, yeah. So it was kind of the same way with Oriana. I mean, it was one of those where it's like, okay, that's a cagey answer at best. If they can't tell me what's going on, then chances are it's not good.
So Cedric was military at some point, and we talked before about how this really kind of affects his attitude and the way he sort of processes things and deals with all the stuff that's happening. Was he an officer or was he just ground troops?
Actually, I don't think we've ever discussed that, but I was under the understanding at the point of everything happening, he's basically an infantry. It's not necessarily like a high rank officer or something like that, but someone who understands how camaraderie works and how a battalion works and protecting the people you're with and stuff like that. And that's kind of where the angle's coming from. It's like, okay, we're traveling, we need to make sure everyone is yeah, you're going to have your disputes, but at the end of the day, I need you at someone's back.
It's like, okay, you can squabble but get into formation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that really comes through in the way he interacts with these other very non-military people. Cool beans. Okay, so and with that, we're going to move on to our topic for today, which is playing characters who aren't like you. This is kind of like playing against type 2.0, except you're the type. Yeah, so it's essentially like playing characters with different personality traits, skills, life experiences, something that most of us do with our characters. So first question, do you think you tend to play characters who are similar to you in personality or no?
Oh, 100%.
Sorry.
100%, yeah. I have to actively come up with characters that are not like me and then really get into that mindset if I'm ever going to play something like that. Like, not a great example because I didn't end up getting to play him, but Walker would be somebody who's very unlike me, and that was going to be an attempt at playing somebody very different, but sadly, no power that day.
Yeah, sadly, he was Oriana. I mean, sadly, he was Serenity. Yeah, no, Rip. Next time. Next Halloween.
Next time.
I mean, he was clutch, though, either way.
He was so clutch.
I've been told he was very clutch.
It could have gone either way. He could have killed us or saved us.
Hey. Wonderful.
I mean, I think it's a little bit more complicated. I think regardless of how you play a character, some part of you shines through. And usually for me, it's that carefree attitude. like with all the characters I play, that's usually incorporated at some form, whether it be through a sense of like pragmatism and, like emotionally, I don't want to say devoid, but being able to take the emotion out of a decision to the point of being just straight 100% upfront, not caring or carefree. So I think, some traits of the person always manage to carry in regardless of how you're trying to play the character.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely always true because you're always yourself, even if you're acting.
It's like ingrained into you. I mean, it's going to come through at some form or another.
Yeah, especially since like characters aren't scripted, so you are making up your script as you go along.
Yeah, and I mean, to top it off, none of us are actors.
Wait, you guys don't have a script?
I mean, if you have a script, more work than I'm putting in.
Emails it to me every day.
Oh, wonderful.
It explains a lot.
That's so mean. To who, though, the question is, to who does that mean? Yeah, Jake, though, like what kind of like what Tick was saying, which of your characteristics tend to just like come through in every character you play?
I tend to always be that very high moral character in a way. That kind of always bleeds through, which is one of the reasons why I like it when I DM and I get to play the villains, because I get to just say, nah, screw all that stuff. Let's be as evil as possible. Yes. To the point where I overdo how evil this person is. Oh, this guy's obviously scummy. Yeah, let's have him hit on his secretary while the party's keeping an eye on him or something.
Like, you know what I mean? You can just go ham. That's why villains are great.
Yeah. See, it's more fun when you play that kind of villain, but they still do something good to like save everyone. Because then it's like, where are they coming from?
Who knows? I don't know. I like it both. I like villains with like no redeeming qualities, and I also like villains. I just like villains. Just into villains.
Good villains come in two flavors, and both flavors are valid.
It's all delicious. Yeah. As for what I do, I literally always forget I'm not the face. If I'm playing a low charisma character, I can't do it. Halloween too. Like, that was not a high charisma character, but I kept trying to like interrogate people. I was like, okay. It was also a really dumb character, but I kept trying to interrogate people.
Poor horse.
Yeah. Oh my god, my horse. I forgot about my horse. Tragic.
Horrible horse owner.
Wasn't my fault. Oh, lovely. Yeah. So.
To piggyback off what you just said, I mean, you're talking about a low charisma character. I think that kind of influences as well, like how you want to play something based on like what type of stats you go.
Oh yeah,
because,
definitely.
A lot of places they roll for stats. I haven't played a whole lot of games that were not like pickup games where you do like a standard array or something like that. Most of the time it's rolled. So you get given like a rough outline, and it's like, okay, what can I make for this character here? Do I want to play a buffoon? Do I want to play someone intelligent but maybe not so good with words? So I mean,
yeah, I find that I don't like finalize my character concept until after stat roll, because that does affect what kind of character you're gonna play. Actually, talking about stats, so with like intelligence, particularly because that is something that you are, I think, semi-obligated to roleplay if you do have a dumb character. Is it harder to play a character who's smarter than you or dumber than you?
I think it's harder to play a character that's dumber. I mean, it's super easy to. This is going to sound horrible, so I apologize up front, but it's super easy to pretend you're more intelligent than what you are. And I think that's something that at least I find myself doing occasionally, depending on subjects that I'm talking about. At least as far as in my day to day with work and everything like that. But it's hard to, again, poor terminology, dumb yourself down. It's also one of those where it's like you really don't want to, because it's like, okay, I'm playing a character with 6 intelligence. How would beat club fix problem. And it feels almost like derogatory to approach a situation like that, at least in my head. So I think it's harder to play someone dumber than what you are, or I should say less intelligent. I mean,
I think it depends on your own personal play style a little bit too. Take our lovely friend Jay.
We can't stop talking about you, even though he isn't here.
He is doing an excellent job, I feel, of playing a character, not to disparage Jay, a character who's obviously smarter than him. And that comes through for me because I can see like how he gets a little bit of the science wrong every now and again, and I'm just like, oh no, that's not how that works. But if I didn't know this, but if I didn't know the science, I would believe the hell out of him. So he plays it very well. But that's the thing with Jay. You never know if it's on purpose or not. You never know. You never know.
It's for humor. Yeah.
I think he does that. Personally, I think
he. Personally, I think he knows. I think he knows, and he just does it to mess with me. But I would agree, it can also be harder to play a character not as intelligent as you, because how do you go about doing that? The hit thing with Stick, thing that Tick was talking about, that only goes so far, and Travis Willingham, when he played Grog, I feel like did a very good job of it, because he didn't really focus on the dumbness outside of RP moments, where he used it more for comedy. Pike's trying to teach him the alphabet. Oh, I don't do so well on the numbers. Like that. I mean, that is how I think you get away with it.
It also goes to reason. I mean, just because someone lacks intelligence as far as like verbal communication doesn't mean they lack intelligence in one form or another. I mean, you can have someone that's a great tactician and can't write his name or her name. They can understand tactics and combat on the battlefield, or they can understand a particular type of thing, but not convey that properly. I mean, one of the reasons why I think it's harder to play someone, less intelligent is the fact that we make intelligence checks against things. So we are fed like a kind of directive based on the role that we get. So we kind of almost regardless have a prompt to work with. So, say you're playing someone that's more intelligent than you physically are as far as a character, and you roll like a 28 on your intelligence check. The information is more not given to you, but that prompt is thrown at you so you can work with that and have that information. Whereas, a character that has 6 intelligence is never going to get that 20 intelligence, DC. That, it's just not possible. So that's another reason why I think it's easier to play above as well. You have some added help from the DM.
Yeah. Except, of course, when you're trying to do a puzzle and you've like 20 intelligence, but you personally are just fucking terrible at puzzles.
Yeah. I swear our next puzzle is just going to be a circle room with doors, and we're going to be there for, 4 sessions. They're all just doors.
Those puzzles were simultaneously my most proudest moment in this campaign and my most depressed moment in this campaign, where I didn't get the cup one, but I got the who's at fault one, like, perfectly. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I think that sort of fits with the way Oriana understands things, because I think she does have more of an interest or like an instinct for the way people interact with each other more than like logic puzzles, if that makes sense. Because she's a high charisma character, so that would logically follow she'd be better at people than cups.
Her intelligence is very much in sort of books and understanding how to talk to people, or at least
allegedly
people who aren't named Perry.
I mean, you like talk around everything.
It's her culture, God.
Yeah, well, I mean,
yeah. But like the thing I always come back to is her willingness to step up to talk to the guy who owned the mines in Dahana. You know, she knows how to talk to certain people, and that's where a lot of her intelligence comes into play, I think.
Mm. She's been to
Nobility
finishing
begets
school.
nobility.
Well, that, and I mean, she definitely thinks her ability to talk to people is a lot better than it is, but you know, she tries to be the face of the group if she thinks it's a serious incident, like the marketplace incident. She wanted to be the one to talk to try and get everybody, out of it without dying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, actually, about that, Jake, are you a face IRL?
Oh God, no.
What's it like trying to play a face? How do you do that?
It's a bit easier because as a teacher, you kind of have to be a face. Which is one of those things where it's just kind of like I switch myself into professional mode. And I pretend I'm just talking like I know everything I'm talking about when it comes to Oriana. Because that's really what it is to be a teacher. You're saying things with the conviction of, yes, this is this is correct. Don't you dare question me.
Oh, I used to fight with teachers all the time in high school. That's terrible. Sorry, stuff keeps falling on the floor. No, I'm recording. Wow. God. Okay, so when you're playing characters who are dissimilar to you, whether they have like skills that you don't have, like the way, like how Campion's very sciencey and Jay's not necessarily sciencey, or how Oriana's knows how to talk to people when Jake is perhaps not as comfortable doing that in real life. How do you prepare yourself for that? Like, how do you switch into that mindset? Do you have tips? Is it just plain acting?
I mean, you try the best you can to, get in that acting mindset of, just thinking of what that character would be capable of doing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it's kind of a weird setup because, I mean, if you yourself don't have the equivalent of, say, 20 strength in real life, how do you know exactly what, you can and cannot do? You just kind of have to guess. And
yeah, or if your character has like an engineering degree and you can't work a wrench, like.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. I mean, you're going to be able to figure out how to, move a spanner or something. But then again, I think someone with average intelligence would be able to understand, this end fits here and spin. So, I mean, it's, yeah.
One thing I would recommend is fake it until you make it. Your character could be a nuclear physicist and you may have flunked out of chemistry in high school or whatever. The beauty of D&D is that you can kind of just say whatever you want, and through the magic of storytelling, whatever you say makes sense. Or, the DM can help you come up with a better way of expressing it or something. One way, using Oriana as an example, one way I use Oriana's face-ness, even though I'm not much of a face, is I try to be as verbose as possible. I try to use as many words as possible. I try to make it as flowery as possible. Does it necessarily make sense? Probably not. Does it confuse the hell out of the other characters? All the time. But that's kind of the whole point.
Awesome. Yeah. So actually, kind of a question that sort of flows out of this. So when you, as a player, are trying to do stuff that your character can do, but you can't do, as a DM, how do you help players compensate for that? Because if someone has like 20 intelligence as a character, but they're say bad at logic puzzles in IRL, like is there a way to compensate for that when a character should be able to do something that the player cannot?
A lot of honeyed words and like hidden double meanings, and hope people pick up on some of that. Because I mean, just because you got a high roll doesn't mean you get like piece by piece of the information. But I mean, it's one of those where it's a matter of, okay, what can I say to get you through the door? I mean, if that makes sense.
That's one of those things where the whole table can kind of come together, since it's communal storytelling. Not everybody in a group is going to have the real world equivalent of a 20 intelligence, but somebody in the group might. And they might be able to say, oh, well, what you're saying with, mixing two types of plants, I mean, that wouldn't do what you're trying to do. Maybe try wording it this way. Or as a DM, you can step in, and since you control the whole world, you can say, yeah, you know what? I decided that particular science thing you're trying to do, that works in this world. Because you can push two magnets together.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about having like a group, just like what you said, having a group together, come together moment, it could lead to a potential situation what, I'm going to call like the idiot savant, or, like the dumb luck situation, where, you're playing a character that doesn't have good intelligence, but then the player itself is, intelligent, and it's like, oh, I have this idea, and it's like, it doesn't make sense to me, but it just came to my head. I mean, so you kind of have that dumb luck moment, which
flash of genius, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it give characters a chance to shine at things they might not be good for. Mm-hmm. Well, not good for. That's a horrible terminology, but
good at.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah. So, like, to what degree can dice be used as a substitute for role play? Like in these kind of situations where you should be able to do something, but maybe you personally can't do it. I'm thinking particularly in like situations where you need to like persuade someone or charm someone, where you personally might not necessarily have the right words to do it, but your character should.
In that case, I as a DM would look at what they're using in terms of their RP to influence the outcome of this. For example, maybe they aren't good at talking to people, but they're, instead of saying what the character would say, they're verbalizing, well, I would play up to their ego because we know this guy has a big ego, and if you stroke it, he'll bend over backwards to help you. Okay, make a persuasion check. Oh, 20? Okay, yeah, you flower him with honeyed words and praise, and he's willing to help you out.
He's real sticky now. Yeah.
Now, to caveat that, though, I mean, that works great in, say, like a private situation, but, going back to what we're doing, we do this for an audience, and it boils down to the point of, if you say something like, oh, I'm going to, speak to his ego, how does that feel to the audience, whereas they would actually want to know what you say, as opposed to just, I'm going to talk, this guy up and make him, elevate this guy and make him feel bigger than he is. If that makes sense.
Higher standard of performance when you're actually doing it for an audience.
Yeah. There has to be like a level of RP that goes with it. And that's kind of where the dice help, I think. If it's something that you can do beyond a shadow of a doubt as far as your character, then there's really no point in rolling the dice. I mean, just do it, if that makes sense.
Not to use myself as an example to sound like the person who's very self-obsessed, but I can't sing worth a damn. And I try to sing, inspirations, or if, there's some, like the karaoke from Avonhurst or whatever. I try. It doesn't sound good. I'm pretty sure the podcast listeners are like, oh God, not again. Take the headphones off.
What's the last time you sang on stream?
The episode after I died. It came back to life.
That's a while ago.
No. I've sung since then. I've sung some inspirations since then. I'm trying to remember. The problem is that I usually inspire just one person, so I never get around to the other inspirations that I have prepared. So it's just like I've used up all my creativity on you. I'm sorry.
Here, have some inspiration. You feel inspired.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, I think I still have a bunch for I had a couple for Dobby, but I mean, we're not going to get to see those anymore.
Sad. Can you read one for us? Do you have them up?
Let me see. Hold on.
I'm gonna pour one out for Dobby.
I'm not going to do that on my carpet floor.
Yeah, I'm not gonna waste my tea.
You know what? I think I may have deleted Dobby's.
Oh, sad. Oh well.
I don't see them anymore. But I do have some for Baltaim, but I never really get a good opportunity to use Baltaim.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one for Campion, but I haven't gotten an opportunity to inspire him in combat in a while.
Well, we'll see it on stream. Yeah, kind of. So, staying on the same topic a little bit, to what degree are you obligated to like role play your skills with stuff? Because obviously like Jay does it quite a bit where he talks through the sciencey stuff. It doesn't necessarily make sense because he doesn't have a background in science, but he does do it. But are you like obligated to do that?
Jay is crazy, so I don't think that's a fair example.
But if you are like a master carpenter, your character, but you are not a master carpenter, to what degree do you need to like kind of demonstrate in character that you know how to put a chair together, if that makes any sense?
I think as much as you're comfortable doing.
Yeah, or as much as the situation calls for. Mm-hmm. Like if you're on a spat of downtime for, a week because you just finished something, you're not going to describe in detail how you build a chair. Whereas, if you're explaining to someone in like an RP moment of how to connect two pieces of wood together, then, you could use that as an RP moment. So I think it's as the situation calls for.
Because of how important the chair is. Could be a very important chair.
It could be. You could be making a throw.
It could generally be a very important chair. Like, who knows what's going to happen in D&D. So, do you guys, like, enjoy playing characters who are not like you? Is it a good way to, like, stretch your acting skills? Or is it just very interesting? Or, like, what's the inspiration there? Why do you do it?
It's very interesting to develop characters that aren't you, but for me personally, it's very hard to play traits that I'm not because I am a stubborn something. So it's very hard to break out of what I am.
It can be quite cathartic, in my opinion. It gives you a chance to be somebody else for a few hours. So in a way, it'd be like a form of escapism.
That's D&D in the whole right there.
It is, but even more so. Like you don't want to role play Joe Schmo, the accountant, who happens to know a couple of magic spells and has a spell book. You know what I mean? Like you still want to play like the overconfident wizard, whose wits cannot be matched.
I want to be an accountant wizard now.
I cast profit margins.
So in order to cast spells, you have your calculator.
Yeah. You'd probably be an abacus, but yeah. Oh, wonderful. So, like, out of all your characters, I want you to think back into, like, the Knowles of History. Like, which one do you think was the least like you? Like, the farthest you strayed from your own personality and own experiences to build a character?
That cleric I played with the arm collecting fetish.
That was an old character, right? I remember you mentioning that in a past episode.
That's where you just go like, balls to the wall crazy, you make something completely outlandish and it's just fun.
Yeah. There's the freedom to do that in D&D where you can just be like, I'm just going to be an insane person, Don't you just want to go apeshit? Sometimes, yeah.
Oriana may actually be.
Really?
It'd either be her or Walker, but I never really got a chance to play Walker, so I don't know how he feels necessarily. I don't know how much different he is than me.
Why?
Just because you learn more about a character as you're playing them.
No, I mean, why Oriana?
Oh, why Oriana? Again, she's much more talkative than I am. She doesn't.
You're not quiet.
I'm not quiet, no, but like that's because we're all friends here. If
I
you
mean,
see
I'm
me
still
if you
quiet.
see me in a room if you see me in a room full of teachers at school, I am the quietest teacher at that table. When I'm around people I'm not friends with or I'm not familiar with, I am a quiet person.
Introverted, valid.
Yeah.
Ugh, strangers. Okay, we love strangers, especially when they're our fans.
Yes.
Fans are family. Are they really strangers? I had one more question I wanted to ask, but that is our time, so we'll have to come back to it sometime in the future. Thank you guys so much for coming on this show on another lovely Tuesday evening. Yeah, that's it for today. Interesting stuff came up, and interesting stuff will definitely happen on Friday as we see the consequences of our actions once again. So make sure to tune in on Friday to see what the heck is going to happen with that violin's really cursed if Fulton and Perry are going to make out some more. And
Are we going to get a long rest?
Are we going to get a long rest? Who knows? I think everyone's going to be really tired tomorrow. Yeah. It'll be great. Yeah, and tune back in on Tuesday next week to see us talking about what happened on Friday. You know the drill by now. Check out our Discord. We just got a shiny new bot, I believe. So come see that. It's very exciting. Check out our memes. Check out everything else. We're friendly. We'll be your friends. Check out our Twitter. Check out our Twitch backlog. We have some old episodes on there. Check out our YouTube. Thank you to Lady Meows and Sunbird for doing our music and our little title card. I couldn't quite pull that for a minute. And stick around for links. We've got new ones this week. India's doing bad, so we got some links for you to hopefully donate to them. $1's worth a lot more than their money, so your money will really go a long way. For them as they struggle to overcome this huge surge they're having right now in terms of COVID cases. Yeah, and that's it. I hope you have a great night and a great week. Bye.